Okay, so in this video, I just want to talk about short about the my speculation for the Etruscans' origin, where they come from, and all this kind of thing. So it's different historians from ancient times say different things. One say that the Etruscans are a local people in Italy, and other historians say that they are from Turkey, somewhere in Turkey. My and I have to somewhat agreed with the person that say that probably they are somewhere from Turkey, but I don't think they are Turkish in origins. What I mean with this is that the Etruscans are what I think, a mix between the Villanova culture that was before the Etruscans and a sea people mixed together with their culture to create the Etruscans later on. So what I think here is that that the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, and other groups have sometimes mercenaries that works for them, and the same for like the Trojans that have a different name. I don't know the real name, but Trojan is the most famous name. Sometimes work with the Hittites in an army like mercenaries, and they also get some weapons from the Hittites and all these kind of things. So the Hittites and the Trojans was allies, and the Trojans serve in some sense under the Hittites. So what I think here, my point is, I think that one of the sea people, I don't know who of them, but one of the sea people, they serving under with the Trojan, and they learn from the Trojan some of the art, and also I think there's two groups of sea people. One was working with the Hittites in Turkey, both is in Turkey. One served with the Trojan, and after they fall, the new Hittite kingdom fall, they the mercenaries from the different barbarians from different places have to find a new home, and then they come to Italy. Much later on, migration to Italy, they meet up with the Villanova culture. They mix with the Villanova culture, so they take with them the culture from the country, the places they served, and they mix them with the local culture in Italy, and with these two mixture, they create the Etruscans. So I think Etruscans are mixture between different culture to create one culture. That is just my speculation. The other thing with this is that armor and other material you have in your home, if you are a person that buy things, like example the Etruscans, the Phoenicians, you can buy lots of things from different places, and these things do not have to do anything with you. It's just you own that thing. So that is also that can also give, for example, if you can find lots of the people in the Mediterranean Sea, you have Greek styles of armor and other things that is Greek, but they are not Greeks. Um, so with all of this, with the Etruscan, is that when you own lots of things and you buy things and you have lots of economy of because of your iron, or because you can sell iron or wine, you can buy luxury goods from different places around the world. So this is very complicated here, because to really understand a group of people, their origin is much more complicated, because if these people mix around with other people and they have trade with other people, make it more complicated to understand their origins. So there is a reason why I think the Etruscans' origin are mixed between different people that probably originally was a group more like a not a group that do not belong to a civilized empire. What I mean with this is that they don't belong to an empire, for example, or a kingdom, as for example the Hittites or the Macedonians, and more local people around there, Aegean Sea and Turkey, around there somewhere, and then they serve as mercenaries for this group, different kingdoms, and through the years they learn from their culture, but they also have their own culture, so they take part from different culture they served and create a new some type of a culture and history for this time, because you can see lots of similarities with, for example, graves, for example, the Scythians, the Kurgans, like tomb graves, the Dacians, and the sarcophagus, where they lie the royal families in, like in terracotta. So all of this kind of thing is not only the Etruscan do, like some the Phoenicians do that, and Phoenician obviously the Egyptians. And when you have money and you meet different culture, you can also get inspired from different culture, and when you get inspired, you do a similar things as they do, but you do it in your own cultural way when you do it. So this is don't because lots of cultures have similarities because of connections. So that is other difficulty. Again, a difficulty to see the original things, the differences, because lots of the people, as I said before, in the Mediterranean Sea was very influenced of the Greeks. People in Turkey, later on after Alexander the Great, lots of people around the world, in India, Iran, and so on, was influenced about the Hellenistic culture, but they were not Greek. They just was inspired of the Greek culture. And the same with the Etruscan. Lots of things that the Etruscan have, like the wine, where they put the wine in, and all of this kind of thing is originally from the Greeks. And when most of your culture is focusing inspired of the Greeks, then it's really hard to see what is your own, what is your origin, what is your own culture, because what is really Etruscan. And so this is what I think here is that Etruscan is mixed between different groups of people that was working with different kingdom at around 1300 BC, and then because the Etruscans start to come up around 900 BC, so 100 years between. So that years gives much time for a spread out of these groups to different places, and so some migration to different places, and the migration gives a very new takes on things. So when the Hittite kingdom fall, I don't think Hittite or the Macedonian kingdom fall because of the earthquake or the sea people. I think the reason why it fall was because the ruling system in their kingdoms was not working anymore for a different reason. I think the point here was that at that time with the Hittites, the Egyptian at that time was very much like one ruler, just that ruler rules, and there was not really any. It was not impossible for that kingdom to exist anymore, because the evolution of humanity, evolution of how people think, and what I think is that when we paint up the picture of the sea people, we paint them up as pirates, raiders, like plunderers, but we don't paint them up as how they really are. That they are a groups of people that flee from somewhere because of different things, because of famines, war. But so we have most of the classical picture of the sea people is people that is evil, and that is picture from the Egyptians. It's not picture from themselves. It's picture what the Egyptian tells us. And we also have to understand something about the Egyptians. The Egyptians is not the friendly little lamb in history. Egyptian was a big kingdom, empire, lots of very powerful army. So my point here is that I think we have to look more into the common people that is what is the sea people. What their background, and to understand them individually, the different groups of the sea people, and then we maybe can understand better the Etruscans, the Racinas, better in the future. But I think we're never going to understand the Etruscans if we just look at the art. I know the art says much things, but the problem here is that if you own money and you trade and you go to different trading port with your ships, you can buy lots of things from different places, and when you buy it, they come from other place. So your local thing that you made maybe will be replaced of the thing you buy from other people because they may be better quality or maybe it looks better. What I know, but all of these kind of things. So really, yeah. So really, all of this is that what I think here is that the Etruscans are mixed with a local people in Italy, but they come from somewhere else, and together they create a new culture because of the mixture of different culture to create one culture, but they still are influence of the Greeks like everybody else is around there. So they are very, very much it's not, I don't think, yeah, that is just what I think is that they really are too complicated to really understand where they come from. I can speculate, but it's really, they don't have anything really that is like 100% unique, that is just Etruscan and nobody else have. They have maybe one material like black clay when they make some kind of things like, but they don't really have anything that is really, really only Etruscans have, because tombs, put things in the tomb, Egyptians have, the depiction in tombs. That is specific for the Etruscan, obviously. Yeah, is that they depict their wives with them on parties. That is specific for Etruscans. That is different. That is a big difference from the Greeks, because the Greeks never show themselves with their wives when they are in parties. So they have a more open view. The nobilities of the Etruscans have a more open, what's more acceptable to their wives. Obviously, Etruscans have slaves, like most of the civilization at that time in history have slaves. That is, they do human sacrifice. Many, like Romans do it, the Carthaginians do it, the Chinese do it, like many different kingdoms, the Aztecs, the Maya, do this kind of thing. So this is not any unique thing. That was just that time. The people do that at that in that time in history. I think the Etruscans are very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. But I think they are very interesting, but I think to really understand them is to understand them as individuals, not as the kings, because most of the time in that time of history, lots of things we know about that time is from the kings. We don't know so much about the local people, the people that it works in the farms, or the fishermen, or people that is not famous people, and we know much less about the sea people than we know about the Etruscans. We know some of the Philistines, but we just know the popular things. We don't know what the sea people really are, who they really are, where they really come from, what are the original place for each sea people before they goes to sea, before they leave the home countries. We don't know that yet, and this is the big problem, because most popular view is from Egypt and from this big picture of the war with the Pharaoh and the Egyptian against the sea people. But in that picture, the same time in that picture, we see different groups of sea people fighting each other. So this also gives us interesting. Do the Egyptians use sea people against each other? And all of this kind of thing. Yeah, and this is what makes it very interesting here, is that because most of the time in history they use different people against each other, the colonizer, to when the colonizer leave that place, that these two people will fight each other and will never can never unite to start a kingdom. They will always be split because they are generation of enemies, because that generation fight that person, fight from that generation fight this same so in generation. And really, this is what I mean, is that in history, when people read history, we most of the time read a upgraded version of history from the people that win the war and create that history, but we never really understand. For example, like this mythology. But when we read it, the Trojan War, we read it through the eyes of the Greeks. We don't read it through the eyes of the Trojans. So for us, the Greeks are the good guys in the book. The Trojans are the bad guys. But we don't give. And Homer is Greek. He's not Trojan. He's Greek. So Homer much later on tells the story, and he tells it obviously from the Greek view. But so all of these kind of things is interesting, because we never hear the history from the Trojans like in the way we hear it from the Greeks. So in all of our history, we see some kind of a view that the Greeks always are, in some, if I can even say like this, but always are the bringers of Western civilization, to like a train of civilization to different people in history at that area. And when something is not Greek, we do not take it as seriously if there was Greek. And I'm wondering if people at that time also think that way. If you don't have Greek style of clothing, and you don't have Greek style of things in your home, you are not good. And this is what I'm wondering here, that the Etruscans, the original culture from their homelands, they replaced because they think that the Greeks was the thing to have. They really don't because many of the culture, for example, the Carthaginians have amazing culture, but is because the Carthaginians was destroyed of the Romans, and I think a big thing for that was the Carthaginians was the only influenced groups, trading group of kingdoms that was different from the Greeks, and I think this was the biggest difference with all of this really impacting. Okay.